Okay, welcome to something new. I'm starting a brand new startup, and today's day zero. I actually don't even have a name or even confirmed what idea it is that I'm going to be pursuing, but what I want to do is create a completely transparent startup where I document every single phase of a startup's journey. And I think a lot of people have done this previously in the sense of saying that building a transparent startup, but they often release information or insights after the fact. Whereas what I want to do is I want to build in public every step of the way, and that starts today with day zero. Just for some context, I've had 5 startups in the past. None of them have really reached the scalable heights that I envisaged at the time. And with my last startup, I spent a number of years learning to code, predominantly with React and Node.js on the back end. And while I was capable of building a full stack application, I certainly wouldn't say that I'm, a well-seasoned software developer. I never worked for someone else as a developer. So it's been about 18 months since I've written a line of code. And when I've thought about, my next idea, I really want to see how far AI can help take me to augment my own skill set. And this is video number 1. So what we're going to be doing today is focusing on the back-end logic for this application, because no matter what application I build, there's going to need to be user registration, login, and authentication. Now, what I want to do is I'm using ChatGPT, obviously. I just want to go here because I know a lot of people, switch to just the more basic model, GPT 4.0, or 4.0, sorry. I know a lot of people would go to ChatGPT and they do something quite simplistic, like I'm building a new application. I want to use Node.js on the back end. Please create the user registration and login functionality. Please use Express and Mongoose. Now, if it doesn't make sense to you, don't worry. I just want to show you this as an example. People would do this, right? And ChatGPT is going to spit out some code, and I'm pretty sure if you take it, it's going to, it's going to run because it's very simplistic, setup or set of instructions that we're asking. So if you're not familiar with Node.js and kind of, any form of backend development, what I will be using for the database is MongoDB. So to interface with MongoDB, there's a package called Mongoose. What's a package? Package is just some additional pre-configured software, I guess, that you can add to your development framework to make things a lot easier. A lot of people use NPM, package manager. So if you go here, you can basically view all of the different packages that people have. So if we search Mongoose, it'll come up. And it'll give it a bit of a description. Mongoose is a MongoDB object modeling tool designed to blah, blah, blah. So that's what Mongoose is. This is our schema for the user. So we need a username, an email, a password, and a date that they signed up. We've then had ChatGPT create the registration route. So this is the API endpoint, whatever your domain is, /register. When we get the username, email, and password from the body that the user is submitting. Basically it checks that the user doesn't exist and it saves that user, right? So same thing with login route. I'm not going to go through all of this. There's some middleware for protecting the routes to make sure that the user is authenticated using JSON Web Token. And then this is basically setting up the server. We're using Express as part of that as well. Just extrapolates or reduces the amount of code that we need to manually write ourselves. So you could cut and paste or copy and paste all of this and install these packages, and that code will run. And I see a lot of people using AI kind of in this vein, like, hey, let's just quickly bash out a prompt and we'll get some code and let's see if it runs. I want to do something much more comprehensive. And as I said, I'm trying to build this startup 100% in the open. So what we're actually going to use is we're going to use the O1 preview. We're going to do a new chat, actually. I do have a few notes just on the side so I don't forget anything, because I want to make this prompt a lot more comprehensive and hopefully show the power of AI and if we do it right, what we can get. And this is all complete, besides my few notes so I don't forget to mention anything, this is all completely unscripted. So yeah, look, this video is going to be long. I hope the audio is good, but let's dive in and let's see what we do. So I want you to help me create the start of a new application, right? To start with, we are going to focus on the back end only. Now I want to tell ChatGPT what types of packages I want to use so that it has more context, right? The back end will be built with Node.js, Express, Mongoose, and I also want you to use jest for testing. Now, if anyone has done any form of development, you'll know that a lot of developers hate testing. Basically, it's writing more code to make sure that the code you originally wrote works. And obviously, it's not the most glamorous part of software development because you're not actually adding any new features. We will say you can install other packages based on industry best practice if they are required to achieve the desired functionality. Now, what we're also going to do for the packages I mentioned and for Node.js itself, I want you to use the following versions. Now, I'm going to specify the versions because obviously ChatGPT is leveraging knowledge that exists on the internet, right? And potentially some of the content that it comes across or knowledge that it has might be based on other versions of different applications or different packages, I should say. And we want to make sure that we're using these versions so that we get new and modern code. Full disclosure, I haven't worked with Express version 5. I was on version 4, so there's going to be potentially some new stuff that I'm not familiar with. Now, in addition to that, what we want to do is we want to make sure that for the folder structure for our application, and you might have noticed before, like if we maybe I can bring up a Miro board to explain this. Before, when we just asked ChatGPT simplistically to create the logic, it didn't really consider folder structure or do anything too crazy. Let me do the blank board. I'm past the free tier on Miro, so let me just bring another board over and delete some stuff there. So on the previous one, it was basically doing our routes, controllers, basically just like that, right? It's two separate files, and then we had our models. What I want to do though is I really want there to be like a folder for like registration, can't spell today. And then within this folder, I want like registration. Still can't spell. Oh, that's not what I want to do. This is live. Make this bigger. I want to do like I want to do registration.controller.js, registration.routes.js, registration.services.js, and then registration.tests.js, basically, so that, and then here we go, use like login and repeat the same, so that we separate out all of the code. That's basically what I'm trying to do. So the idea of doing this is that in the future, when we have a lot more functionality than just like user registration, login, etc., we're going to be able to have everything really separate and logical functionality, right? Because in the future, let's just say it's a task management application, you're going to have tasks, and you want all of the controllers, all of the routes, all of the services, all of the tests. So like login.controller.js, login.routes.js. So what I'll do is, for the folder structure for our application, I want you to configure it similar to this. I won't tell it exactly because there is going to be some stuff that you won't want within. There's going to be some common logic that you might not necessarily want in separate folders. So let me similar to this, and then I'll say the idea is that each piece of functionality is contained in its own folder structure, making it easy to find and debug code within particular components of our app. There will, of course, be some middleware and utils that are used across functions / areas of the app. These can be saved in a more central folder. Basically, use best practice when designing the structure of this application. All right. bear with me. I know this is a lot of context, but we don't want to be those people who just put in some generic stuff and hope for the best. All right, so now when we think about this, like if we go back to Miro, we're going to have a user, right? And maybe we just have, like, a lot of people just create the functionality as a user. But what we really want to think about is if we're building an application that's going to be used by teams, there's really a company, right? And then within a company is a user. And a company can have multiple users, user 2, user 3, etc. So we need to think about this when we're telling ChatGPT how to think about the logic for the user model. So we're going to tell it, let's just say, for the user registration, login, and associated user models, we must create an application that supports the following structure. 1. Each user must be associated with the company. A user can only be associated with one company. 3. But a company can have many users. Maybe say for the first user that signs up, we would therefore also be creating the company at the same time. We will have role-based access control in our app. So that's like making sure that admins or general users can do different things. So the first user must be assigned an admin role within the company by default. Maybe not within admin role by default. Yeah. Cool. So when outside of that, when a user signs up, we want to ask them for their email address, their password. We must also confirm their password, and company name. Now, this is something that people wouldn't know unless they at least have a little bit of background in software development. When saving the password, we must ensure it is hashed. For this app, we will use bcrypt, which is another Node.js package to achieve this. For authentication as well, we will use JWT, which are JSON Web Tokens. Basically a way of ensuring, like, once a user is logged in, we store a token so that we ensure that that user, we know that that user's logged in, and then when we send requests, we check that there's JSON Web Token, check that the user's logged in, and then they can view and interact with whatever capability we build. All right, cool. Then what we also had is the testing. So for testing, I mentioned using Jest. I want to ensure we do both unit tests and end-to-end integration tests. We want to achieve 100% test coverage for this application. Ideally, we can do that. We might run into some problems, but let's leave that for now. Alrighty. I think if we shared that, we'd probably get quite a good way, but there are a couple other things that I know of from my experience. So for environment variables and API keys, etc., we want to ensure these aren't saved in our Git repo. So Git, if you're not familiar, you probably heard of like GitHub. It's a way of kind of tracking and managing changes in code. You don't want to put API keys and environment variables that are like secrets in there, because then it could be leaked. So we will use .env for this. I can fill in the details of any secrets we need here later. Use placeholders for the time being. Alright, what else do we want to do? Other things we want to consider are let's also use Express validator. That validates the like whatever information the user is inputting, we can do some level of validation. So for example, we could check that the email address is of a certain type, or we could check that the password is a certain length. We also probably want, let's also do validation at the database level using Mongoose schema validation. Let's create, actually this is a big one. For our API endpoints, let's ensure we use appropriate API versioning so we can update this easier in the future. What I mean by this is you would have seen, like in the previous example, right? So if our company, if our domain was like xyz.com and the endpoint that it was hitting was registration. Oh my god, I can't spell. If that is not on the front end, not in your browser, if this is the API endpoint that we want to hit to register, without version control, it might just be that. Whereas what we might do is like API/v1.0/. So then that way, if we do change the API endpoint in any way, we can still use this, and then like the newer version might be like 1.1. Just give some flexibility. I've never done that in an application. I just know it's kind of important. Then let's also, I'm just checking a few of my other notes here. Let's use a logging tool like Winston to help with debugging. Let's create a middleware for error handling. Please also incorporate appropriate data sanitization. That's basically so that people can't write some text that's effectively code and then try and upload it in a text field like, you know, the username, and then have that script run. So that's important. Maybe there's things like email verification, password reset functionality. We might do that a little bit later on. We will also just say, please also create an API endpoint for health check to monitor application status. And then let's also please set up config files for ESLint and Prettier to maintain code styling and quality. Okay, bear with me, guys and girls. I know we've been recording what time? Geez, 21 minutes. We haven't seen any code. So let's run this. Oh, I've got to ask it something. Anyway, we'll see what it comes back with. Actually, I'm going to hit stop. Sorry, before you execute that task, is there anything else we should consider before you write this code? That was something I really wanted to ask it. Alright, so interesting. Here are some additional considerations. So we already talked about npm, so like let's go 1, yes, let's use npm. I know of Yarn but never used it. Yes, let's use helmet. 3, yes, let's use express rate limit. Yes, please set up cause. So that's cross origin. What's cause stand for again? Jesus Christ, I can't remember cause. Cross origin resource sharing. So basically, like if you have your backend deployed on a particular port and your front end deployed on another port, you need to allow them to talk to each other, because by default, if you have a cause policy, you're going to stop other applications or trying to interact with your API endpoints, right? That's a pretty bad way of explaining it, but let's just go with that. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with CSFR, so we might just say what is CSF to explain in more detail. Configuration management, I'm not familiar with those, so we'll leave that. For documentation, I will use Postman to document my app. What I would like you to do is add a separate MD file, markdown file, in each folder that provides a detailed breakdown of the functionality for that particular component, and document what all the API endpoints do, as well as provide details on how other parts of the code are configured to run, i.e. detail what the controllers and services do. CI/CD pipelines, we'll leave that for now. Connection management, never come across that. Yep, testing, yes, use jest coverage to generate test coverage reports. Pre-hooks, not familiar with that. Husky, centralized error handling, yes. Create centralized error handling. 9, yes, use structured logging with Winston. We're not going to do clustering at the moment. Caching, we will leave. Load testing, so I'll say we won't use Redis yet, nor do we need load testing at the moment. Yes, use that API versioning strategy. Geez, there's quite a lot. No, we won't use Docker yet. JWT, I'll tell it yes, please also use refresh tokens. This is really detailed. I think it's going way over the top. I think that should be enough for now. When you write the code, please make sure you write all of the code. Don't leave anything out. Let's see what it does. How many minutes? 26 minutes. It's going to ask us about that CSRUF thing, which I'm not familiar with. So it's thinking, soon figures out. I can guarantee you it's going to be a lot more comprehensive than the simplistic example that we gave it. So look, there was obviously a lot of things that, well, not a lot, a few things here that I wasn't familiar with, and I think that comes from, you know, some of these considerations, or if you're building a much larger, more scalable application, or you've got other things that you need to be aware of. But what I do think is that the combination of AI plus in kind of at least an initial knowledge does help you go a lot further than just AI alone. Okay, so that's how that works. Here's the project. So npm init, that's initiating the project. These are all of the packages that we need to install. You can see that's actually specifying the versions, which is interesting as well, because I didn't know 5.0 was in beta. I better check that, because we probably don't want to use a beta version. I thought 5.0 for Express was now actively live. There's our project structure. So it kind of took my what I was saying to do. So we've got our registration, our well, basically it starts with the route, which is the API endpoint. Then the controller takes that, you know, goes, okay, we've got either data being received or we're sending data back out. Like, how do we want to, what do we want to do with that? We want to register a user, but all of the actual business logic for how that user should be registered should be in our services folder, or services file, I should say. So that's great. Obviously, we'd keep models separate for the user and the company because they're going to be consistent no matter if we're registering or logging in a user. We've got that README file that I asked for so that it explains the code logic, and then we've got the tests as well. Middleware, again, these are reusable things across multiple you know, different components or functionality. So we've got obviously authentication to check that the user is authenticated. We've got the error handling, and we've got our validation. So it looks like a very clean folder structure to me. Very happy with that. There's the configuration file, so we have to put in our secrets. You don't want those publicly shared. This is configuring ESLint, which is basically like code formatting tool. Same with Prettier. Jest configuration, so that's for the testing. This is our package.json, so this is where all of the scripts, so if you, for example, run node server.js, it starts up the server. We'll get into all this later on. This is our core server application, so we saw this before with the simplistic example. And this is basically Mongoose connecting, blah, 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 running. This is the main application folder that starts to basically initiate or run everything. So we've got a lot more things happening now. We've got our cause package, we've got Helmet, we've got Morgan, I forget what Morgan's used for, the rate limiting. Then we call a central folder that has all of our routes, health check endpoint, logging, blah, blah. Let's go middleware. So this is authentication. Anyway, here's our model. So we've got our email. You can see, again, compared to the other one, like there's some additional things that are included, the validation, password, company. So a user is tied to the company, so it's referencing the company. So mongoose.schema.types.object ID, it's referencing the object ID of the company for each user. That's fantastic. We've got functionality here to check that the email is valid, and you'll see that here. So validate, it's calling this function, which is this, to check that the email format is correct. We're hashing the password. I told it to use bcrypt, which it's doing. Fantastic. Here's our company schema. So we've got our company name. Each company can then have users. So again, we're referencing, this is an array. You can tell that by the square brackets, an array of users. Each user has an object ID. So that's fantastic. Optional for storing refresh tokens in the database if we want to do that. Registration module. So here we have our API endpoint. This is the route. So we hit /register, but the full API endpoint will actually be using, where is it? Back here, v1, right? So it'll be /API /v1 /register. And then basically from the front end, which we haven't built yet, but you can test this with Postman, we're going to make sure, well, we're going to get the body. From the body, we're going to get their email address, and we're going to do some validation here. We're going to get their password. We're going to do some validation, and we're also getting the confirmed password. We're not going to store the confirmed password. We're just going to check that the two passwords do match. So that's what this function is doing here. And if it is true, they match, then we'll allow the user to register. Here's our controller. So that endpoint leverages this controller. So register, you can see that here. So at the end of this API endpoint, we're calling this controller function, which is this. So we've got our email, password, and company name. We then await the registration service to register the user, and we pass to the service these things. Again, if you're a developer, I'm probably skipping over some stuff and not explaining it as well as other people could. This is my simplistic, explanation of it, but I hope I'm making sense. So this controller now calls the register user within the registration service, which is this. So register user. I know there's a lot of duplicate, like it seems like there's a lot of duplication here, especially compared to the first example where it was just like hitting the API endpoint, registering the user, and doing everything in one. But this is a much more scalable and much more basically chunked approach to building an application, right? So anyway, this controller, sorry, where were we? This this is our registration service, so register user. We're getting the email, password, and company name from this piece of code, right? So here we've got register user. We're passing in the email, the password, the company name. We pick that up here, right? Let company, we make sure, so we're checking company.find1. We're looking at all of our companies. Is there a company with company name? If there's no company with company name, then we can save that company. We might actually want to change that because, I mean, does it really matter if people have the same company name? Like you could have, for example, ABC Roofing in America and ABC Roofing in Australia, and you want to allow people to have the same company name, on the front end, but in terms of our database, we want to ensure that it's different. So we've got to think about that. But anyway, user count. So if there's no users already, we assign the user the role of admin. If there are already users, we assign them the role of user. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of this, but we're saving our user, we're saving the company. Okay, let's see. It's providing documentation. Here's our login module. So again, it's going to have the same stuff. We've got our route /login. We've got some validation. We've then got our login controller. We've then got our login service. So, for example, user find the email, populate the company name. If no user, throw email or password is invalid. If the user is correct, we need to check that their password matches the password stored in our database. But because the password is encrypted, we need to use bcrypt to compare. If it is correct, we assign them a JSON web token so that we can keep them logged in. Same thing with the refresh token there. So providing a description of the login module. Here's our main routes. So the routes.index file provides an entry point to all of the different routes. So we're using /auth for both registration routes and login routes. Here's our testing. So it'll provide, for example, it sends some dummy data and it tests that these structures are correct. We can run our test with npm test. Data sanitization, let's just ask it, did you provide all of the code? Is there anything you missed or other things you think we should consider? So let's just see what it comes back with. Now, just as a comparison, so I hope you can see that's a fair amount of code. As I said, I do have the ability to build full stack applications. I did that with my last startup, but by no means would I say I'm a professional software developer who could go out and get a job straight away kind of thing. I could probably get a junior developer job, but I'd still need a lot of training to kind of maybe get to a high standard, obviously. I don't know, writing all of this code maybe 8-10 hours for me. I'm not exactly sure, but I think you can see that it provided it in a much quicker fashion than if I was to write out all of this myself. Let's just see. Let me scroll down past what it was saying. So what is it saying here? Let's go. Okay, thank you, blah, blah. I provided, so it only did an example test file, did not include all tests, so it's done that. It didn't set up the middleware correctly. Okay, that's great. Roles are defined in the use model, but we need middleware. Error handling, can provide more custom. Okay, refresh token, generated but not stored. So it's done a few things. So it's now gone back and given us some additional code to add in. What we're going to do is, though, we are going to stop here. I am going to release this as one video, but I'm going to go, it's the end of my lunch break, so I need to get back to my day job. And I will restart this video and we'll get this code up and running, and then we'll be able to see kind of if it works, first of all, and then also go through any debugging, and then also just kind of look at the code base itself and see if there's any other functionality that I think is missing or that we want for this kind of initial user registration, login, authentication piece. For example, we might change that company as instead of a company name, maybe we have to assign each company when it signs up a unique ID, so that you can use the same company name, but you have two different IDs for it, but we'll see. Cool. All right, well, I will not release this video yet. You'll catch me again in a second when I come back and start implementing this code. Okay, I'm going to continue on with my the authentication, the backend user registration authentication system. This should be one continuous video for you all, but if it is not because of YouTube upload limits, this might be part 2, where we are taking the code that ChatGPT has written for us, and now we want to basically see if we can get this code to run. So what I've done just quickly is I've created a folder, Backend Authentication 2024, just on my desktop. I'm using VS Code, and I've just gone File and Open Folder, and then I've opened that folder. So just got that ready. If you're not familiar with VS Code, you can of course go to VS Code and download it. It's just a text editor. It's a Visual Code Studio. Download for Windows for free. Yeah, I'm going to presume you know what VS Code is. So we need to initiate npm init. So we're just going to cut and paste that, and it's going to automatically answer all this for us, which we don't need to worry about for now. And you can change that later on if you need to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to install all of these packages. So as I mentioned, we do want to use Express.js. I didn't realize 5.0 was still in beta. Yeah, I didn't realize it was still in beta. I'm just wondering whether or not we run with 5.0 or we switch to 4. API documentation work in progress. Let's go. Actually, let's ask and tell me. As I mentioned in my the previous section, I only have familiarity with Express.js 4. So we just want to see. Okay, so yeah, Express 4.0 doesn't have native support for async await. Have to handle errors using try, catch, or use third-party packages. So that's how I'm more familiar with it. Some middleware has been removed and needs to be installed separately. So body parser, cookie parser, session. Routing changes, introduces router.use. Okay. Errors have to be passed. Okay. When is I just want to build a bunch of functionality if it's not going to work because some of this stuff is in beta. It's close to completion, no significant, so blah, blah. All right. I think we can go ahead and use it. So we're going to use version 5. So where were we back in here? Scrolled. So yeah, you can write this out manually, obviously, npm install. So it's going to install all of these different packages. It's installing the specific version of some of the packages that we gave it. We can do that. And you can see, actually, sorry, just to point out, when we did this npm init, it created our package.json file. So now when we run this command, what you're going to do is you're going to see this package.json file get populated with all of the different packages that we use. And then that way, if you share your code or publish it, commit it to GitHub, and then someone downloads it or forks it, they don't have to download all of this. By default, they just download the package.json file as part of the GitHub repo, and then they run npm install, and it'll go through and install all these packages for them. So it just makes it a little bit easier, and the file size for sharing code isn't as big. All right, so now that we've done that, code preparation. So these are our project folder. We got the root, we got registration, we got our .mv. So where will we start? In my opinion, I know this is a little bit out of order. We will start with our server file, and I'll just keep this open here so you can see we're just going to put this in the root. Server.js. Paste that. Remind me about that later. It's defaulting that we're using React, but we're not. I don't want the little React symbol, JavaScript. Okay, we can save that. It's not going to work because it's now trying to pick up from our .env file the Mongo URI and everything like that, which we haven't configured yet. So now it makes sense to do our .env file. So we'll copy this. Paste that in here. So we do need to input this URI string, which we will do a little bit later on. ESLint. I've never used configuration files for ESLint, but let's see how we go with this. Should be straightforward. And Prettier, which I have used as a add-on in VS Code, but never. I don't think I've previously defined the formatting options within this config file. Do that. Just config. So that was still in. Yep. And then what it's done here is it's updated the script section of our package.json. So here, to be able to run Prettier and ESLint, as well as this part here with the lint staging and Husky, which again, I'm not too familiar with, but we'll copy that. That's going to go in our scripts, package.json scripts. So we just copy and replace this. And it was needing a comma there to close that out. That'll work. All right, application entry point. So this is our server.json file. Server.json, hang on. Oh no, I already inputted that, silly. We did that, app.json. I don't know why I'm saying JSON, app.javascript. Sorry. This is live because I made a mistake, and I'm not going to restart the video to correct what was a stupid mistake referring to it as JSON. I don't know why I was doing that. So this, if we try and run this code, it's not going to work at the moment, obviously, because it's got a whole heap of different dependencies that it's trying to bring in, like this error handler, middleware, our routes file, etc. So we kind of do have to go through and set all of this stuff up before any of it's going to work, which is going to take a little bit of time, but hey, that's the point of doing this. So we've now got our utils folder with this logger. So we'll create a new folder, utils, in that logger.js. Copy that. Middleware, so we've got another folder. This is our error handling middleware, although it did mention here error. It did say that it can do something a bit different. Oh my god, it's so annoying that it's... That's really annoying. Sorry, now I've got to find where I was up to again. We'll run with this for now and we'll look at it in a little bit of time. So we need another new folder, middleware. And then we're going to call this error handler.js. And obviously if you change any of these names, like you call it like error handling.js, obviously you need to update wherever that code is imported. And we've also got our auth.js, so we'll install that. Not install that, but cut and paste that, save that. Validator request. All right, and then we've got our user models. So we need a new folder structure for models. So models, and then this is user.js. Still using that React little symbol, even though it's not React, but that's okay. Company. Token.js. Optional for storing refresh tokens in the database. I don't know if it used that. Did you? We can ask it that. Maybe what we need to do is let's type down some points to consider. Actually, what we might do is we might do this in Notion. Points to consider. So I'm just going to bring this over here, and we're going to ask ChatGPT if the code is using the new functionality in Express.js 5 for error handling. We can either ask it, or we'll see in the code as I go through. And then we're also just going to ask, have you set up the code to use the refresh tokens? Have you configured the code to use the optional refresh tokens? Save that. All right, registration module. So now we need a new folder structure. Actually, we didn't save this. So token.js. Save that. And then we need new functionality in registration / registration routes. I'd prefer if instead of being in the project root, it was like functionality, then registration, and then that. But for the time being, we'll keep it as it is. So we just need a new folder, not in there, folder registration. And then we will come back to routes. I just noticed this was with a capital R, so whoop, cancel, rename, capital R, okay. Registration routes, copy, save that. And then registration controller.js. Sorry, registration controller. Yeah, that's right. Registration service. All right. So, registration README hasn't formatted that correctly as like a markdown file that I can just copy and paste. So we might ask it to do that later. We'll put that into Notion. Markdown files for explaining all of the code. What I might do after this video is I might actually do a video explaining all of the functionality, yeah, at least in kind of my understanding of it, or how I would explain it. Again, probably a professional developer would explain it in a lot clearer way than I would, but I hope that kind of like by being someone who kind of sits across both ends, in terms of being someone who knows how to code enough to kind of create, being able to code enough to create, an application myself, but not being proficient enough to be able to like necessarily work as a full-time developer. I hope I can explain it in a little bit more layman terms. I'm just pasting over this because I created the file name wrong. I did the controller first, not the routes. So we've got to do login.routes.js. Login.routes.js. Save that. Controller, and then login.service.js. Alrighty. Login module is README, and then we need our main route folder. So this is in routes index.js. So routes, and then index.js. Save that. And then testing, registration test. So in here, registration.test.js. Save that. Test coverage, data sanitization. So where are they saying to include that? Data sanitization. Mongo sanitize. Okay, where have you? It hasn't. I don't think it's done that. Let's just question mark. Alright, so this is all live. I'm not really planning out how we're doing this video. It's just really to show you kind of live troubleshooting as well. So there's some things that we're just not going to know at the moment. Configured ESLint pretty for code linting. So what we're going to do, pre-commit hooks to use. So it's going to use Husky and lint staging to enforce code quality on commit. I wonder, can we run this on save? Question mark. Presumably you can, but it's not set up to do that. Alrighty. So these were some of the other things that it said to do, but what we're going to do now is we are going to see if we can get this code to run. So if I try and run this at the moment, if we go to our package.json file and we go nodeserver.js, it won't work. Nodeserver.js, because it's not going to pick up the Mongo URI. There might also be some other issue. Anyway, we've got to solve that first. So if we go to our .env, we need to put in our secret key, our refresh secret, and more importantly, our MongoDB connection string. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to MongoDB Atlas, which is basically a cloud version of MongoDB. It saves you having to install it and run it on your own machine, although you can do that. Maybe we should do that. I think I might have MongoDB already. How can I check what version of MongoDB I have installed? Mongo. Okay. So if we run it, cancel. Didn't copy that correctly. Copy. Okay. Thought I had it. Anyway, what should we do? I'm just thinking in terms of easy use, it might be better to download this database. How do I just download MongoDB? It should be easier than this. Download. No, it's using Atlas. Oh, good. Okay, we're just going to use MongoDB Atlas. I'm just going to take this off screen so I can sign in for a second. Welcome. Blah, blah. Primary goal, build projects, more than a year, Node.js, that'll do. Search engine, I'll say not sure yet. Alrighty, so this is how you can create this so you can get a free cluster. We'll call this Node.js Backend for now. Sydney, which is where I'm from. Create deployment. I had the preload data set up there. That's great. Just showing the world my password, so I'm gonna have to change that now. Let me just take that back over here. Copy that. Let me just put this over here for a sec. Create database user. Choose connection method. All right. It's a little bit different how I've used MongoDB in the past, so I'm just trying to remember this. npm install MongoDB. Yeah, let's go back. So drivers, access your Mongo database, native drivers, explore, modify, and visualize your data with MongoDB's GUI. We'll do this, I guess. It's been a while. So, done that, done. Create cluster. No, whoop. That's what we just did. How do I go back? Back. What I'm looking for is this button. New cluster is being created. Connect. Can't do it. 1-3. Right. Connect. No, that's not what I want. What do I want? Configuration, maybe. Nope. Again, you know this is live because basically you get a connection string to connect to the database, and I have forgotten how to do it. Connect. I swear to God, you used to just do this. Let's just ask ChatGPT how to log in. Clusters, connect your cluster, that's what we do. Connect your application. And then that's what the string should look like. That's what I'm expecting. Okay. So connect to your application. Why am I not seeing this? There it is, far out. So I'm going to copy that. You guys already saw my password, so I'm going to have to change that before I publish this video, which I will do. So don't try and log in with this password. I'll have to change it and then update this. So paste that there. I'm pretty sure we get rid of the brackets. Yep, and we also need username, which I already gave us. Okay, cool, fantastic. So we save that. Our refresh secret and JWT secret. This can be anything. Again, I'm going to change this before you see it, but we'll just do some gobbledygook for now. Save that, and then let's go npm run. Oops. So again, just so you guys know, what we're doing now is we're going to run this start script. So it's not npm run, it's node server.js. A bit rusty, as I mentioned, and I think we're going to get an error. So app.use requires middleware function. isn't it working? I'm not too sure. Let me just ask ChatGPT. Alrighty, I am getting this error. Sorry, accounting error message. The error indicates yes with an argument that is not a middleware function, specifically points to line 15, Mongo sanitize. Potential issue. Okay, used Mongo sanitize. Okay, yeah, so we need to uninstall that. That's what we had that as a note anyway. So let's uninstall that, and then we'll reinstall this. And then we need to make an adjustment somewhere. So we need to update this import. And then has it Mongo sanitize? Oh no, it's still still username there. Okay, cool. And we have our server starting up and working. Alrighty, how good is that? Nice and easy. So obviously, you can't see it because it's just the backend, but we can use a tool like Postman to kind of hit the API endpoint and test that it's all working. So maybe that's what we will do. If we go to Postman, and if we go to here, actually it is on. It's running on port 3000 unless we specify another port in our .env file, which I can't remember if we did. So it is on port 3000. Sign in. So I'll have to figure out if I can block out my email address, which is fantastic. So I'm just signing in. Continue. Alrighty. So we might just. Is it working? It's logging in. Fantastic. Oh my god, I just signed in. What's going on? Redirecting you to the desktop app, which it's not doing. Anyway, maybe it is now. Oh, whatever. Okay, that ain't working. So what we're going to use is just the web-based client and close that. We're going to do a new request. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a post request, and we're going to do post request to localhost 3000, and then we are going to have to enter some information for our registration. So if we go to registration service, we can see that we need this stuff. So what we do is we can go over here, post 3000 / I forget what we did for the API. So /API /1, and then /register, and then we need to send a body, and we need to send raw as JSON as an object, and we're going to do email test at email.com. We're going to do our company. Is it company or company name? Company.id. What does it save it in the model as? Company name. Comes through as company name. even though it's saved as name in the database, it comes through as company name in the request.body. So this is the body, so this needs to be company name, and this can be ABC Corp. And then we need our password. Now we did configure it to have validation of the password. So because we didn't set up what the password has to be, I don't know like what format it has to be, and if it has to be a certain number of characters or anything like that. So let's just do something that's a little bit crazy, and then confirm password, same password. Okay, and then I think that should work. So let's send that. Sending request. Ah, man. Okay, download the desktop agent. I already have the desktop agent. Let me just try and log in again. It's really annoying. Allow access. I need to sign out. I think it was getting a bit confused. Then we're going to sign in. Get redirected. Going to continue. Open Postman. Sorry, you can't see this, it's on my other screen. Okay, we're getting there. We are going to then just do new post request, not that, that's the body, raw JSON, only one of the fields. So we've got to copy this, that here, copy that, put that there, hit send. False, cannot set property query of incoming message which only has a getter. That's interesting. Why is it doing that? Internal server error. Cannot set property of query. What we will do is we will go to our app.js, and we've just got this API endpoint, which is a health check, which uses a GET request. So instead of a POST request, use a GET request. So we'll do that. Just hit send on that. Still getting the same error. I think I know what it is and why it's doing it, but I think it's probably related to some of the middleware and the sanitization. But we will just say, when I try and call API endpoint, I get this message. While it's doing that, I'll just have a quick, I'm going for another 30 odd minutes, so I probably will have to break this into 2 videos. Yeah, you can see it's got something to do with Mongo Sanitize. I reckon query properties change. Interesting. Since Mongo Sanitize is not compatible, recommended solution. Okay, so we'll write our own middleware to sanitize it. Sanitize object, Mongo Sanitize. Okay, we will do this. So we'll stop our server, and we will uninstall Mongo Sanitize. So this is one of those reasons why I didn't really want to use something that's in beta, but hey, it is what it is. And we now have to create another middleware folder file, sanitize.js. So we go to our middleware, we go new file, sanitize.js, click into that, copy this, where are we? Paste that. And then we need to install Mongo Sanitize again. I think it was that we uninstalled previously. And then we need to update app.js to use the custom middleware. So we need to do app.js, put that in, and then we also need to change sanitization middleware to stop using Mongo sanitize. Save that. Then we go npm. Not sorry. Dev. Server's running again. No errors so far. Let's hit our health check API endpoint. Status okay. Perfect. And then what we will do is we will cut and paste in again. So let's just create our test user. Body raw JSON. And then we need to change the API endpoint to register. Send. Not found. 404. Cannot get API. Interesting. Not a very helpful error message there. And I didn't expect we'd run into these kind of problems straight away for something as quite as simple as this. Cannot get API. API v1 health check. Oh, I know, sorry, stupid. I forgot to change this from get to post. I don't know why I didn't pick up that straight away. Post it cannot post. Okay, it still cannot post to that endpoint. So it's not that issue. Cannot post. Why cannot post? API /v1, and then we go routes. Oh, doing. It's auth/register. Again, pretty rusty on this. I haven't done it for a year and a half. So basically, what happens is, just to explain that for those of you who aren't familiar, in our app.json file, what we are doing is we are bringing in all of our routes here. So const routes require routes. And then this is saying app, our Express app, use this URL structure with routes. So then we need to go to where are our routes? Our routes are here in the index.js file. And because it's index.js, that's why we don't have like here /index.js. I mean, you could put it there, but you don't need to because it's smart enough to know. So then when we go routes index.js, what we've got is our auth. So router.use /auth for registration routes. So basically what it's saying is you take this string of the URL, we add it to this, we add this string to the URL, and then we go to our registration routes and we add this string to our URL so that when we call it via our front end, when we build it, or if we're testing in something like Postman, this ends up being the full URL structure, obviously appended to, in this case, localhost 3000, because if we go to our .env file, we can see that we're running it on port 3000. So when you're running it on your own computer, it's localhost port 3000. Obviously, if you then deploy this to production, it'll be a different URL structure, but the API part, like the endpoint part that you code, will always be that. So I hope that makes sense. We have got a successful application up and running. You can see here the user ID, the email, etc. And then what I might do is if I bring back our MongoDB Atlas, and if we just refresh this, actually we have to go into browse collections. We are going to see our user, which is fantastic. So this is all that sample data that it brought in. So actually maybe we just delete all of that. We don't want the sample data. Drop that. And then here is here's our user test email. That's the hash password. And then our companies, it's going to have the company name of ABC Corp with an array of users with the user ID. It doesn't bring in the whole user, like it doesn't need to duplicate all of the fields because it's just a reference to the user ID. Yeah, so I'm going to end the video there. I know we've still got a little bit more that we want to explore with our application in the backend. So we wrote a few notes here, which we've got to go through. I think we answered the question on this Mongo sanitize thing, but there were some other questions and some other recommendations that ChatGPT made. But in summary, I think you can appreciate that this is a much more robust folder structure, a much more robust approach to developing the backend than what we started with at the very beginning, which was just asking ChatGPT to create a very simplistic user registration and authentication backend. We've got something much more robust, much more flexible, and there's a lot of other kind of services built in around this. We obviously want to go through and finish off the testing, so we'll do that probably next video, and make some further enhancements to the code. Appreciate everyone sticking with me. As I said, this is a new experiment for me. I want to completely document the journey of building this startup from day one. That includes everything, and I think this is evidence of it. We don't even have a startup idea yet, or a name that we're committed to. This is the backend though that's hopefully going to be powering that application that I built. So thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video, and please hit that like and subscribe button if you want to follow along with my journey.